Today, students, I'm very excited. We have a special guest, and as you can plainly see, he's a police officer. His name is Officer Zemlock. And Officer Zemlock is here to talk about the Bill of Rights and how it relates to law enforcement, specifically the Fourth Amendment, search and
seizure.
He's also going to approach it from a forensic standpoint, science, and he has a lot to say about that. So let's make him feel welcome and give him a coffee house clap.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Good.
Good. As he said, I'm going to talk to you about a few different things. I'm going to start out by talking about the forensic side of law enforcement. How many of you ever watched any of those police shows on TV? Okay. Everything that you see on those shows, for the most part, is accurate, true, and correct, with the exception of one thing: time. When they submit a sample and it comes back in 30 seconds, or they put something in there and it immediately tells them who the person is and where they live and where they work and all of those kinds of things, that doesn't really happen in the real world in real time. But they can't make a TV show that's 6 weeks long for one case. All right, so that's why they do it. But that evidence or that information that they're getting is all accurate and real. And the systems that they have in place are run by scientists. Kids who are going through school, had an interest in science, maybe had an interest in, I talk to a lot of kids. How many of you have heard kids say when they're growing up, I want to be a police officer, or I want to be a firefighter, right? You know, you hear those kinds of things. And sometimes when those kids, yeah, I want to be a police officer, but I'm really into science. I really like that aspect of things too. This gives you kind of the best of both worlds, because you get to be the one catching the bad guys theoretically, but you get to do it behind a microscope. What if some kid comes to me and says, this kid in my class has a knife on them? Would that give me the probable cause or the suspicion that I need to do a search? What do you think? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes, it does, because it's a weapon, it's unsafe. Okay? If it was drugs, if it was a weapon, if you have a laser pointer and it's a school violation, then no. All right? So in order for me to do that, or at least make it clear as to how we do that, I'll need a volunteer. Who wants to volunteer?
I volunteer.
Okay, right here. You
Let's
didn't
give
bring
Josh a little something for that.
You didn't bring anything with you today that you're not supposed to have, right? Okay, why don't you come stand on this side of me over here. Now this is a demonstration, so I'm not going to do an actual search on him, but I'm going to demonstrate as to what we would do. First thing I will tell you is if you get searched by a police officer, it's uncomfortable. All right, and I always tell people, if you don't want to get searched by a police officer, then just follow the rules. Follow the laws, don't break them, and you never have to worry about it. First thing we do is we check up in the hair area. Sometimes people have ponytails or their hair up, you know, we'll check and look at those kinds of things. If he's wearing a baseball hat, we'll pull the baseball hat off and look. You see, baseball hats have that little rim on the inside, all right? We've found drugs, razor blades, all that kinds of stuff, you know, up in there, handcuff keys, okay? So that's what we're going to be looking for. I'd have to have a necklace on. Do I believe him? No. Okay? I'm going to check anyway. All right? So I look, no, he doesn't have a necklace. What could somebody have on a necklace? Any idea? Keys, weapons, okay, all kinds of stuff. We've had crazy things.
Well, it is difficult to imagine a more respectable young man than Josh, and I sure did appreciate his willingness to roleplay this arrest situation. It was also very difficult to limit Officer Zemlock's speech to a few minutes, as well as all the other guest speakers featured in this sequence. The students truly enjoy the first-person narratives, vivid descriptions, and direct involvement. Bring guest speakers into your classroom, related to your curricular areas, and they will certainly make a lasting impression.
I never let go of the handcuffs, okay? Because my responsibility is also to his safety right now.
We have a very special guest today indeed. And he is from ancient Egypt. Please, gently, let's welcome our guest. And incidentally, when he comes alive, he may be confused. He may think he is in paradise. If he asks, is this paradise? We love our little town, so we're going to say what?
Yes.
like it? Is this paradise?
Yes.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Wow. Can I share with you a story? The story of how I got here?
Sure.
I was born in the year 2491 BCE in a region known as Upper Egypt. I made my living as a farmer, growing crops such as wheat and barley along the banks of the Nile River. I made a living, and it was a good living. And I was able to sell my crops to all of the neighboring communities up and down the river. I made a lot of money and was able to give my family everything they ever wanted. Now you guys are probably thinking, how is it possible to become a successful farmer when you live in the largest desert in the world, the Sahara Desert? And the answer to that question is pretty amazing, and it's pretty cool. You see, every year, way down south in Central Africa, high up in the mountains, the rains would fall and fall and fall. And all of that water would come rushing down the mountains into the Nile River. And the Nile River would carry those waters thousands of miles, over 4,000 miles, until it emptied into the Mediterranean Sea. But while all of that water is falling down, the banks of the river would overflow for miles. 3 miles this side, 3 miles that side, underwater. Now that can be very, very dangerous, and it can cause a lot of destruction. But when that water is gone, something magical happens. Because when the water disappears, what it leaves behind is this dark, rich, nutritious soil called silt that washed down with the water. Now I know you guys have something called bathtubs, and you know how when you get out of the bathtub there's a ring of dirt? Well, that ring of dirt is what we use to plant our crops. And it was amazing. Some of the best farmland in all of Africa, not just Egypt. And even though I was successful, I always knew that I needed to take care of the people in my community that were less fortunate than I was. And you probably know why that is. Because the gods and the goddesses are always watching. And I knew that when I died, which unfortunately I did, but not until I reached the ripe old age of 39 years old. When I died, I knew that I was going to have to face judgment before the mighty god Osiris. If the heart was too heavy, and if the scale tipped, well then, that means your heart was filled with sin, which means you didn't live the kind of life that the gods were going to reward. And there was one god that was waiting for that heart. His name was Emmet. Sometimes he was called the devourer of souls. He had the body of a hippopotamus, the head of a lion, and the mouth of a crocodile. And if that heart were heavy, the great god Osiris would feed your heart to this creature. Without your heart, you were never going to be able to live in paradise, and that would doom your soul for all eternity. Not something we want to have happen to us. Good question. Now I have a hook here that's probably a little bit too big to actually fit into my brain, but it'll give you an idea of what it looked like. They would ever so gently place the hook end inside the dead person's nostril. And then, also very gently, they would smash the end of the hook. That would send the hooked end through the skull and into the brain. They could then give it a couple of turns to make sure that it hooked onto something, and then, using much care, yank the piece of the brain out the nostril. Chances are they were going to have to do it many, many times, because big brain, small nostril.
I'm standing alongside my friend, Mr. Blair, our guest speaker for today, and he's going to share the important work that he does in the country of Rwanda. Let's make him feel welcome, please. Mr. Blair, it's all yours.
Thank you. If you take a look back here, that's the kind of drinking water in Rwanda a lot of them have to deal with. The water is not free. A lot of times it's 25 cents just to fill your water jug up. And this is the kind of lake that they get their water from. So they do have extremely harsh conditions. Here's one of the pictures out in the past year. As you can tell before, these are the jugs that these kids are carrying up. This is an incline. And that's the water that had to walk down quite a ways, fill it up with water, and then trudge it all the way back up to their house. But you know, it's a labor of love. You can see the kids, even though it's a responsibility they do, they're doing it, they're not begrudging it. It's understandable that if we want this water, we have to go get the water. So here, the figurines here, this one and this one here, are indicative of the wood carvings that go on in Rwanda. This is a source of income for most of the people.
Standing alongside me is my good friend, Dr. Travelocity, and I'm very happy that he's here today to share his story and also to share his passion. And some of you might have guessed his passion happens to be the Civil War. So let's give him a warm coffee house clap and make him feel welcome. Travelocity, thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Bob Travelowski. I'm a retired dentist, retired for a whole year now. And I'm dressed as a cavalryman would be dressed in the Civil War. I got interested in this particular subject by a person who is dressed just like me, doing what I am doing for you when I was in high school. He came in and talked about one of the battles that were going on in the Civil War. So they were very, very adept at that. So they were very difficult to find, and that's why they had so many people. Julie, come up here a second. I want to do something here. Put that on. And put this on. Okay. We'll put this on here. Okay, now button that up. Button it up. You gotta button it up. Because this old droid has his stuff buttoned up. Okay. Well, you gotta button it up right up here. Okay, let me put this on. And you're about the size of what a Civil War soldier was, about his height. Because people weren't that tall in those days. You ever see pictures? It looks like the rifles are about this tall. You see a picture of McClellan, General McClellan, used to call him Little Mac. He was about this big. He was just a teeny, teeny fellow. Okay, we'll put this on. Do this pretty quick here. Okay, what I'm putting on, this is his belt with his cart cap box. This is where the percussion caps go. This is a bayonet. Okay, again, hold the tip up. This is sharp on the tip. The only thing I use this for, I stick it in the ground when I put my ram around to load my musket. But please, keep it up in the air and look at it. Don't wave it around. Okay, now I want you to hold this. Okay, now you just stand there and hold that for me, okay? Now, what we're going to do here, we're going to see how he feels in a couple of minutes. You getting warm already?
Oh, kind of.
Kind of, okay. These are all wool uniforms. Now, picture this. He's got wool long pants on, wool socks, wool jacket, and he's marching to Gettysburg and it's 95 degrees out
Oh, wow.
and humid.
Oh, great.
Yeah, that's a heavy. No, I have a smooth
Ivy!
That's called a pot stand.
Dude, I use some of those. Dude, I got needles already. I'm not scared.
We are extremely fortunate today to have Mr. Devore with us. Mr. Devore is an anesthetist, and he's going to be talking about the world of anesthesia and how it relates to surgery. Let's make him feel welcome, shall we?
Yeah, my name is Jerry Devore. I'm a nurse anesthetist. The official letters for that are CRNA, Certified Registered Nurse Anesthetist. So I'm in a long history of human beings on the planet. There really was no good anesthesia that would allow to take away pain, effectively at least, and safely. And they couldn't do surgery for a variety of reasons, including you can't open up a patient and start looking around in their abdomen unless they're deep asleep, because the patient would be yelling and screaming, and they couldn't hold still. And if they were so drunk or on some drug that had them so comatose that would allow it, they would probably die just from the level of drugs in their body. So my point is that it wasn't that long ago when there wasn't anesthesia. There are three categories of anesthesia. There's the general anesthesia, and that is, of course, probably what you guys are aware of or think of anesthesia. That's when the person goes off to sleep, they're not aware of anything, they don't hear anything, and then we wake them up after the surgery, and that's what general anesthesia is. Regional anesthesia is like when ladies go into childbirth and perhaps they get an epidural where we put medicine in the lower back and we inject medicine there by the nerves and it numbs them from the belly button down. That's regional anesthesia. And then the third anesthesia is, I want to ask you a question. Has anyone had their wisdom teeth out?
I have.
Have you? And did you drift off to sleep or not?
Not really. They put an IV in and that was out.
But you were asleep during the procedure?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the third category of anesthesia, that's IV sedation. And it can vary to the depth of it, but it's a wonderful application of IV sedation for wisdom teeth extraction because people don't remember it all. Now mind you, while they were doing the procedure, you probably were talking to them on and off during the procedure. You just don't remember it because you were so sedated that you don't remember. So those are the three types. So today I brought a few pieces of equipment, and we're going to be looking at those in just a moment. And for our volunteer patient, Luis, would you come on up and take the position of the patient, okay? We're going to have your head here. Feel like a patient?
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take very good care of you. There you are. Okay. Excellent. In fact, what we'd be telling patients typically is you're going to have a very nice sleep. We'll take excellent care of you and you'll be just fine. Okay. Okay, Louise, what I'm going to do is show some equipment. And so people who have surgery almost always have an IV because it allows us to give precise medications very easily into the body. Once medication goes into a vein, it circulates very quickly throughout the body, and most anesthetics go to the brain. I mean, that's where most of them create their effect. So IVs are very important, and so that's why we use them. So Louise, I'm going to put this, actually we're going to put this, I'll let you hold this in your fingers, and we'll call this as your IV here. Okay, you can rest your arm down. And these have little ports on them where we can hook syringes to them and very easily give medications. So this IV is typically started outside of the surgery room by the nursing staff. And so how did the IV start go today? Was it okay or?
It's pretty good.
Okay, all right, good. We took decent care of you. And for an example of this IV, we're going to. I'm going to put this right by your hand here, just for it. This is plastic, so it isn't going to poke you. Okay, so in the world of anesthesia then, what we do is we have an anesthesia machine, which is something like a $60,000 piece of equipment. And we would have Louise breathe from here, and there would be just oxygen initially, probably. And then when we wanted him to go off to sleep, we would take our IV tubing and we inject some medicine. So what happens is I'm going to ask you, as I inject this medicine, to count back from 10, 10, 9, 8. And we'll say this is a famous surgeon, Dr. Brunel. How's that? Would you come and join us this morning? Okay, thank you. I appreciate you coming. Appreciate you volunteering. Okay, so you're going to be the surgeon, and we talked. What injury are you having that we're speaking with you today? Come on in here a little bit.
I broke my ankle.
Did you? Okay. We're sorry to hear that. Okay. Can we fix it? Can Dr. Brunel fix your ankle today?
Yeah, please.
All right. So thank you for coming. I'll have your patient asleep in just a moment, and we'll get going here. Okay. So IV medication is given. I want you to. You're going to find yourself going off to sleep at probably about when you get to 8 or something. Okay. Let's hold your arm up, and you're just resting it here. And as you fall off to sleep, you might notice it just sort of falling. We'll see what happens. So I've just given the medication. I want you to lift your chin up a tad and just take a nice couple breaths from this pure oxygen you're breathing, and start counting back from 10 now, please.
10, 9, 10.
Very good. He's a wonderful actor here. You're falling asleep, Louise. Good job here. We're gonna now, in the hospital, we would secure the arms so that they wouldn't fall. So now he's drifting off to sleep, and I'll make sure he's got plenty of oxygen in his body. And at this point, I'm actually controlling his breathing. So now, Dr. Brunel, you're now free. We can show his ankle here, and you can just sort of maneuver it, and you make your initial assessment on the fracture that you're looking at in just any way that you see fit.
Okay.
And as Dr. Brunel's doing that, you'll notice he doesn't move at all because he's totally asleep. She could pick that ankle up and drop it, and where it would be extremely painful, and it wouldn't be any response.
He's awake.
Okay.
Okay. You don't feel that, do you? No, he's not even talking. He's actually. Okay, good. Okay.
I'm just going to test it to see where the bone pops out.
Excellent. What an advanced technique you have.
Yeah, I see the broken right there. I finished with the x-rays, and it looks like I fixed him perfectly. I saved his life.
Okay, now I know you're still sleeping here, young man. We're going to turn off the gases. Going to give you just 100% oxygen. And what happens at this point is that he's breathed in all this medicine, and it's diffused throughout his body. It goes to fat-rich parts of our body. Yeah, okay. All right, so you're waking up. I'm going to take this tube out now. You're doing just fine. So we remove the tube. Okay, you're doing fine. Are you there? Do you hear me? Okay, good. You did excellent. All right? Okay, thank you. And then we simply take him to the recovery room, and he'd continue to wake up and recover.
I recently had the privilege of being in a wedding, and Pastor Mary officiated at that wedding. She was very inspirational. I asked her here today to share her life story. Let's please make her feel welcome.
Thank you. It's really a great privilege to be here, first and foremost. I began my professional career as a teacher in a classroom. I was a high school teacher in North Carolina. I was also inspired to be a teacher by my 4-H agent there in Knight County in North Carolina, and then also by my favorite teacher. Dreams were always important, my father and mother told us. I had the privilege of growing up with 9 other siblings. I was 4th born. So programs like 4-H and after-school programs became very, very important, not only for inspiration in my life, but because we grew up largely in poverty, as did many other families in my small little rural community. It was an opportunity to not only participate in after-school events, but also to learn more about the various professions and life opportunities available to me. There in North Carolina, in eastern North Carolina, there is a community or county called Pembroke, North Carolina. My great-grandmother was full-blood Cherokee. And I didn't know the reasoning at the time, but I would often see in my mother's bedroom when we would go to visit something that looked like this right above her bed. It was later on that I discovered that it was a dream catcher. So go on as your grandmother would inspire you to do. Be brave and build bridges that people may share lives and share their dreams. I like to think that school teacher, Miss Eva Louise Shelton, saw in the eyes of children their dreams and their visions for the world. And she felt called upon, compelled, if you will. She was compelled to make sure they were able to dream their best dreams. Thank you, Miss Shelton. Thank you, Grandma and great-grandmother and father, for catching the nightmares and freeing me to dream my best dreams. Another is the Lighthouse. I had no idea, coming from the state of North Carolina or Virginia, where I grew up, that Wisconsin would have so many communities with lighthouses. We don't have as many as Vermont or some of the New England states, but North Carolina and Virginia, whether it's along the Chesapeake Bay or there on the outer banks of North Carolina, they have gorgeous lighthouses. Every community I've served in as a pastor since 1978, when I came to Wisconsin, they've been in communities where lighthouses were nearby, or there in the center of community. Even in Neenah, we don't have a lighthouse as such right along Riverside Park, but right in the center we are redoing an old water tower, and at the top of the water tower there is a little lighthouse, or what served as a little lighthouse. The importance of the lighthouse is this. I believe what my 4-H agents or advisors were attempting to say to me, what my teachers and what my parents were saying to me, that every gift I have been given, I have the potential for being a lighthouse in someone's life. I could have brought my Bible that I preached from, but I wanted to find a way to bring both education, which I'm passionate about, and my spiritual life, which I'm passionate about. I wanted to bring them together. And the lighthouse became a symbol for me. My prayer always, my desire, is to light a pathway as I teach a new concept, as I break open, in a sense, the Word of God. And my prayer always that it will lead people to find the courage to dare to dream, that even as their dreams are identified, they will be like a lighthouse in the midst of their communities, never being denied, even in the midst of storms, You know, the lighthouse still will cast a light. And boats and people are guided to safety. Imagine to live such an inspired life because of the choices you make, the dreams you dream, that your life can be like a lighthouse, guiding individuals who may very well be lost in life, dreamless, visionless. Wow. Be a lighthouse. The third is also a light. When I was assistant to the president at Marion University in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, the primary main campus, each year when new students came in, I had a part of my responsibility was to do student orientation. And the focus was on sharing with students the mission and the values of the college. See, I had no idea that my mother was absolutely right when I gave up high school teaching, not because I wanted to. I taught consumer education, I taught food and nutrition, and I taught what is now called human ecology. It used to be home economics. But then, when I told my mother I felt called into the ministry and I was leaving my first profession and going to seminary, Mama said, "I've noticed that about you even as a young child. It was named in you a long time ago. Isn't it wonderful to think that there are those who care for us and love us, our parents, our friends, our neighbors, and our teachers, that they see in us. They may not know the exact, but they see the potential. And we're called to call out that potential." So I gave students a lantern. A lantern. I encouraged them to walk their values around, carry them with them, not just in a duffel bag, but allow their lives to speak.
Over the years, the number of guest speakers who explained how, when they were in school, an individual came to their class and inspired them has amazed me.
I got interested in this particular subject by a person who is dressed just like me, doing what I am doing for you.
I would begin with your colleagues. Here my friend Mr. Purcell, a geography teacher extraordinaire, helps explain ancient cultures in a world history class. You might be pleasantly surprised how your colleagues can help make your content come alive. Your administrative team may provide a substitute, or you might switch classes for a period of time. Encourage your guest speaker to get the students directly involved. It might be as simple as gently passing around a few artifacts to complete engagement. You may want to have your guest speaker use an active learning strategy. Here my friend Mr. Devore uses medical dummies to teach the basics of first aid and CPR. A math teacher might want to have an accountant or carpenter explain how formulas are utilized in their professions. A government teacher might ask a school board member or a local politician to explain how decisions impact people. The possibilities for a science curriculum are unlimited. A few examples might include an environmentalist, researcher, or chemical engineer. An author, magazine, or newspaper employee might be invited into a creative writing course. Again, you pick a speaker that fits your curriculum. Our business teacher invites a millionaire friend in to discuss how he earned and invested his money. At the end of his speech, he gives each student $1. Obviously, they love it. Here, Officer Cook explains the amendments to the Constitution and how they apply to adolescents. When she takes away a student's phone for this specific demonstration, she has everyone's attention. And here my friend Wayne Knowlton, a member of our local Rotary, does a masterful job presenting on the Choices program. He uses numerous active learning strategies, provides each student with several souvenirs, and even unrolls a huge paper scroll meant to demonstrate how good choices early on in life will pay dividends throughout your entire life. You might videotape your guest speakers and use them as a review, or possibly show the videos next year if they are unable to return. It won't be long before you have your own video library of dynamic guest speakers. Discipline issues are rarely a problem because I plunk myself down in a chair next to any student I feel will be disruptive during the presentation. It was an absolute pleasure to introduce Mr. Curtis L. Brown. I would like to introduce my friend. His name is Mr. Curtis Brown, and he is a survivor of a Hungarian forced labor camp. Can we please make our guest a piece of living history? Can we make Mr. Curtis Brown feel welcome by giving him a coffee house clap, please? Welcome. To say his childhood was uncertain and intriguing is an understatement. Mr. Brown shared information from his book, as well as many stories about the living and working conditions he had to endure as a young man. After surviving the Holocaust in a forced labor camp, I asked him what we can learn from his dreadful experience about how we should treat one another today. He said simply,
"They say that war brings out the best in people. Well, it brings out the best in good people. It brings out the worst in bad ones. So you have to decide which side you're on."
That was a powerful statement for the students. You have to decide which side you're on. And now my friend Dolores discusses her life as an adolescent. Mr. Brown and Miss Dolores are two amazing examples of living history, and they had little trouble captivating the students even though they speak quite softly. Please note, our mature relatives, friends, and neighbors are full of exciting stories and unlimited wisdom, and yet, unfortunately, they are underutilized. We have a very special guest today, and her name is Miss Dolores, and she's going to share a little bit about her life's journey. Let's make her feel welcome by giving her a warm coffee house clap. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. When I grew up, life was so different than what you have today. We had no malls. We had no McDonald's. We made our own fun, and we had a lot of fun, and we were a close family. Well, in the winter, what did we do for fun? We went ice skating. On Thanksgiving Day, when my mother would be fixing dinner, she would say, "Shoo, all of you out of the house." So we would all get on our snowsuits, we would strap our skates on our shoulders, and we would be off to the ice skating rink. At noon, we had to be all home. And we had a nice big dinner, and then we would all have to go to our rooms to do our homework, because Friday was school. We didn't have off on Fridays after Thanksgiving. So we all went to school the following day. What did we do in school? Well, we had arithmetic, we had history, English, penmanship, and we had the most wonderful, wonderful teachers. So can you relate to me what you do today in school? What would you do without computers, calculators? We had none of that. Everything was done in our heads. Science class, we had Bunsen burners. Do you know what those are?
Yeah.
Well, this one girl started hers on fire. So the fire trucks had all come and put the fire out in our science class. I thought that was a lot of fun. Let's do that again. So, and another thing in school, how did we dress? No one ever wore jeans. We didn't even hear the word jeans. Farmers wore overalls. This is how we dressed. I'll send some of these pictures around. This is how we dressed in school. We wore dresses. We never, ever, ever wore pants. And then came the war. When I was a freshman in high school, and a lot of the students in school went off to war. And I remember this particular Sunday, we were all up in our rooms doing our homework, December 7th, 1941. We were all in our rooms doing our homework. I had 3 sisters. That was our procedure, to eat dinner, go to our rooms, do our homework. My father came up the steps and said, "I want you all downstairs, we need to talk." President Roosevelt said, "We are at war." We got so scared. are they gonna come over here and kill us? Who are these people? And my dad said, no, it will never be fought in the United States because we have good servicemen who will protect us. And then during the nights, we would hear air raid wardens, and they would walk down the street, and if they saw any little light from your windows, they would knock on your door and say, you need to put curtains over your windows, so that who's ever flying overhead, if they're the enemy, will not see you. And during the war, we had no nylons, we had no shoes. They didn't make any cars because everything went to war protection.
Students, for one of the active learning strategies that we involved ourselves with, entitled Moving to the Music, we used Ken Tribolini's music. And I have the CDs right here. And the gentleman who created this wonderful music is standing to my right. He's here today to talk a little bit about his passion and maybe play a little something for us. Okay? Can we acknowledge the fact that he's willing to come here and share his music and his passion with all of us by giving him a warm coffeehouse clap, please?
Thank you. Thank you for coming. My pleasure. Thank you. My passion is music. I've been around it all my life. I guess I'd like to ask you some questions. What does music mean to you? When you think of the word music, what does that mean?
To me, it means it's like a way to express yourself and how you feel.
Wow, that's a really good answer, because that's what music is. It's an expression of what's coming from yourself. I often ask this question, I still don't know the answer. Does society reflect what comes out of our music, or does music reflect what society is? In other words, society can be very chaotic. So our popular music right now could be very chaotic. Society could be in a state of peace, and the music that's being popular at the moment is peaceful and relaxing. And so music is a very powerful tool that we can use to help ourselves get into a place that's better than perhaps the place we're in the moment. If we're angry, we don't want that. Put in some relaxing music. And my music is instrumental. The goal of this music is to help people relax and feel peaceful.
Now this is a demonstration, so I'm not going to do an actual search on him, but I'm going to demonstrate as to what we would do. First thing I will tell you is if you get searched by a police officer, it's uncomfortable. All right? And I always tell people, if you don't want to get searched by a police officer, then just follow the rules. Follow the laws, don't break them, and you never have to worry about it. Okay?
Never being denied, even in the midst of storms. You know, the lighthouse still will cast a light. And boats and people are guided to safety. Imagine to live such an inspired life because of the choices you make, the dreams you dream, that your life can be like a lighthouse, guiding individuals who may very well be lost in life, dreamless, visionless. Be a lighthouse.
Wow.
this? You wanna try this? Come here.
Go ahead.
I'll set something up kind of fun for you. You can go in here and play beats, all the different beats. It's got, so just, okay, you tell me if you hear one you like here real quick.
Oh, I just play right.
Okay, so wait. Okay. Okay, now these 5 notes right here, I want you to do something. Anything you want. 5 notes, yeah? Just keep doing that, you got it.